We all see the same world, but research creates a new vision of what is and what is possible. Research is central to the University of Pretoria's vision. We strive to expand the boundaries of knowledge, to develop thought leaders, to answer global questions, and to create an impact that can change lives. A combination of high productivity and excellence has earned UP an international reputation for research that is a game changer for Africa and the entire 21st century world. What we do will shape the future. The University of Pretoria's diverse research platforms offer a launchpad for today's generation of knowledge seekers. Unlocking tomorrow's potential in the unknowns of today. Our research themes and priorities pave the way to a more sustainable and equitable future for Africa and the world. Covering topics from food security to astrophysics, health and well-being to new business, and from biodiversity to education in the digital era. Engineering 4.0 is a platform of synergy for the development of smart transportation networks where digital technologies and augmented intelligence will enable new communication networks and urban development. The ever-evolving art of Africa has found a new home at the Javet UP Arts Centre, where the deep histories and cultures of African people combine with technology to inspire new creativity. Recognizing that knowledge cannot be compartmentalized, UP champions a transdisciplinary approach. Creating Future Africa, a hub, a community, a home for African scholars, and a meeting place. A place where digital connectivity enables minds to meet without boundaries, and shared knowledge enables new solutions to African challenges. Welcome to the University of Pretoria, where we do research that matters.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on today's live stream, which delves into the groundbreaking research done by the Forensic Anthropology Research Centre, as well as to find out more about Deresana Plus and Bakengsi Africa. My name is Sikanda Kala, and I will be joined by my colleague today, Professor Erica Noel Lebay. Please feel free to ask questions and engage with us in the chat and the comment section during the live stream. Professor Erica Lebay is the Director of the Forensic Anthropology Research Centre at the University of Pretoria. She is interested in biological and forensic anthropology, health sciences education, and education management. Holding qualifications in each of those fields, she has supervised a wide range of postgraduate projects in forensic disciplines related to forensic anthropology and has recently included micro-XCT scan data to her repertoire. The University of Pretoria is the coordinating institution for Bakengsi Africa, and Professor Lebay is the primary project coordinator at the University of Pretoria. She manages the project and ensures that all deliverables and goals are met. Welcome, Professor Erica Lebay, and thank you for joining us today. So, Professor, just to go through a few questions, and I'm quite interested and quite excited about this conversation because I think we find ourselves in a time where digitization is so important and research as well. So, the first question that I have is, could you please give us a little more detail about Forensic Anthropology Research Centre and the research that is done at the centre?
Certainly. We developed the Forensic Research Centre, or FARC as we call it, as a centre of excellence in innovation and skill development in biological anthropology and research that is both nationally and globally recognized. Our research is primarily focused on human skeletal variation as a means to improve outcomes of victim identification in forensic anthropology and clinical applications, particularly in dentistry and implantology, as well as facial prosthetics. Currently, in previous research conducted by the FARC, or the Forensic Anthropology Research Centre, includes studies on the various parameters of the biological profile, which includes estimating a person's age, their sex, their stature, and their ancestry. While we've done a few studies on stature and age estimation, our main focus is on human variation and how it can be applied to the estimation of sex and ancestry. We are also mapping human variation in modern populations, which has implications for human evolution, as it provides a comparative sample to work with. Other areas include computerized facial approximations, 3D reconstruction of crania and teeth, as well as investigating human variation and its application to zygoma and nasalis implants.
So, sounds quite comprehensive and multifaceted in all that is done. So, that leaves me with the question of, what impact does this research have academically and on society in general?
We are accustomed to working with the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa, also known as the SDGs, as our measures for impact on our society. So our research broadly impacts health and well-being, quality education, innovation and infrastructure, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnership for the goals. More specifically, an understanding of human skeletal variation in a digital environment allows our students to obtain a toolkit on how to work and apply with digital data, but also allows us to provide law enforcement and the medical fraternity more information on skeletal variation of internal structures within bone that were previously inaccessible without CT or micro-CT technology. An example of an outcome could be, for example, improvement in dental implantology based on knowledge of skeletal structures of the upper and lower jaw during various stages of adulthood. And another one could be the reducing our analysis time with digitizing some aspects of the biological profile, such as automatic landmarking of the skull, which can then be used for estimating ancestry and sex. The former will improve patient success with their implants, while the latter will reduce the time it takes to develop a biological profile, providing more immediate results in the presumptive identification. This is important considering the very large number of identified persons or unidentified persons in the country each year compared to the much smaller number of people available to analyze this material across the country.
Okay. So it sounds like benefit in almost like a diagnostic and clinical benefit as well as further research benefit as well.
Correct.
Okay, fantastic. And I think that then, naturally leaves me with the question of, could you please tell us more specifically about the Darasana Plus as well as Bakeng South Africa?
Okay, both are Erasmus Plus capacity building projects and each lasts for a period of 3 years. Each grant encompasses collaborations with 7 to 8 other institutions, both in South Africa and Europe, of which UP is the project coordinator for both grants. Each grant covers staff costs, equipments, and travel mobilities for each institution for a total of 1 million euros amongst all of us. Bakeng South Africa, meaning for Africa, was initiated in 2019 and was the first EU-funded grant received within the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Pretoria. We work in collaboration with Sefako Mahatho University, Stellenbosch University, and the Nuclear Energy Corporation of South Africa, or NECSA, along with 3 European partners, including the Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium, the University of Bordeaux in France, and the University of Coimbra in Portugal. Our European partners supply the human capacity to train our students and ourselves in working with digital technologies and in developing these technologies in South Africa. Bakeng South Africa has 3 main goals, which include the creation of standard operating procedures for the scanning, storing, and sharing of digital data of humans, the development of a repository of digital copies of skeletal materials from 3 South African institutions, and the creation of an ethics constitution to support the repository. We hope to be completed with the repository at the end of this year, but we need to expand the project for another year so as to complete our travel mobilities, which were unfortunately halted in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For Darasana, we learned of our success in October of 2020, so it's a fairly new project, with the project only starting this year in January of 2021. As I mentioned earlier, Darasana is also a capacity building grant from the EU for 3 years, and we are 7 institutions in total, both from South Africa, Namibia, and Europe. So our sub-Saharan partners include Sefako Mahatho University, the University of Witwatersrand, University of Namibia, and Welwitschia Training College in Namibia. And our European partners are the University of College of Dublin, Maastricht University, and the University of Turku in Finland. And we are focused on health professions education, which also includes biological anthropology. And the project has 6 primary themes, mainly to reevaluate the curriculum in health science education in South Africa, to develop formative and summative assessment data banks, investigating attitudes and perceptions of students with regards to interprofessional education, creating research and academic literacy within health science faculties, designing approach for socio-cultural diversity and inclusion in the classroom, and in using digital technology such as 3D printers, surface scanners, and digital images to aid in learning both inside and outside the classroom.
That's very nice. I think, it sounds like very comprehensive, but I think what really stands out to me is that even in the COVID-19 climate, there's still so much collaboration And I think that stems more from the digital age that we find ourselves in, that we've still been able to collaborate on such a wide scale.
Yes, it's quite difficult. I believe Zoom and every other version is very difficult, and then I don't think it will ever replace human interaction.
Indeed.
But for the moment, it is workable.
Indeed. And I think we all are learning that day by day.
Yeah.
Okay. And, speaking specifically about the scans, what will these databases and these 3D scans be used for?
With Bekengse Africa, we're developing a digital image repository of human skeletal remains from which we'll be able to preserve and ethically share digital copies of skeletal data for use in research and teaching, both nationally and internationally. Dirisana will supply the equipment to expand the digital data of Bekengse Africa. With assistance from the University of Maastricht, we're also building an assessment database for use in formative and summative assessments.
Okay, and what impact does this research have for commercial use and educational use?
We certainly need commercial and educational use because we need to develop sustainability within anything that we build capacity in South Africa. And the EU leaves the sustainability up to us. So the research from Bekengse Africa, as well as other projects involving digital imaging, can be used for the creation of 3D prints for sale and for education, actually for both. And the sale of digital prints will also ensure the sustainability of our hard drives and maintenance of the Bekengse Africa repository. For example, forensic or biological anthropologists are taught about the microscopic identification of bone trauma in their case analysis, how to make interpretations from broken bone based on both context and the total body trauma pattern. Yet few global institutions have the capacity to collect or store examples of bone trauma for their students to learn about skeletal injuries. With our ability to either micro-CT scan bone injuries or surface scan them in the morgue, we will be able to reconstruct bone fractures for 3D printing that can be used in a wide variety of contexts. And we would like to offer a bone trauma workshop at the end of the year, which will showcase some of our 3D prints. In education, if we can give our students a set of 3D printed bones so as to visualize macroscopic features, as well as internal structures as part of their undergraduate course. For example, one of my colleagues suggested that we take a tooth and we break it apart, we print the enamel, the pulp, and the dentine, and we show the students how it fits together. And then we can take it apart again, and they can better understand what these internal structures look like, because they will not see them normally looking through skeletal collections. We can actually print all the dentition of the mouth and make it easier for students to access and to learn their teeth. I know personally, teaching undergraduates for the last 20 years, as well as postgraduates, no one likes teeth. Because you have to find the smallest, most worn teeth possible to study from. And this will improve their attention of skeletal anatomy and help us maintain ethical standards. I can't give you a bag of bones to take home, but I can give you prints of those bones to use, which can help you in learning human osteology.
So I guess that would allow for better attention to detail, which then allows for better training, and also the applicability and the utility of that also then comes with financial sustainability through commercial use as well. Fantastic. And can the 3D scanned material be used for police work in collaboration with the South African Police Services?
Yes, fortunately we have a very good relationship with the South African Police Service, and 3D printed material can be used in the medical legal system in a variety of ways. For example, let's take our fractured skull that we used from the trauma analysis. You can clean the area of interest or the region of interest that you want to scan. You can scan the material, you reconstruct the area or the fracture itself, and then segment it and print it. The 3D print of this bone can be used by the forensic pathologist or the anthropologist in the courtroom, or any situation where the real bone cannot be ethically applied. Another application is to scan traumatic injuries in high resolution, such as micro-CT, which we have done, and then work on demonstrating procedures for distinguishing class of knives and saws. This can also lead to further research in the area, particularly in the much needed area of research in validation of saw class methodology.
Okay. And how has the use of technology changed your field of research?
Previously, the research was limited to what you could physically available in a skeletal collection, what was macroscopically visible in the bone, as well as what funds were available to transport a researcher to a particular skeletal collection. Technology has literally opened up the human skeleton for investigation without the use of destructive techniques and sometimes without transportation of the researcher, which we have learned during the COVID-19 pandemic. By making use of digital scans, internal structures and surfaces are accessible, and with the use of micro-CT as well as CT and CBCT, which is to explain computer tomography and cone beam computer tomography, it is possible to evaluate more variation within and between human populations. Basically, we're exposed to more skeletal variation to work with, and we're not limited to the historical circumstance of global cadaver donation, which has issues in South Africa. With our ability to explore within internal bony structures, we have greater applications in the medical field, particularly dentistry and implantology, as I mentioned earlier.
So moving beyond certain stop holes allows for better efficiency, essentially.
In some ways.
Okay, fantastic. And what effect does the 3D printing technology have on your research specifically?
3D printing does not necessarily improve the research, but it does change the application of research and teaching. For example, I can write a comprehensive book chapter on blunt force injury to bone, or as I did more recently, on thermal alteration to bone. Within the chapter, I can add 3D printed examples that can be purchased or provided with the book, much like we did with CDs many years ago. The impact of their learning is considerable if someone is able to handle and manipulate a 3D dimensional object of a broken bone rather than just the two-dimensional photograph. In the past, we've always used real human material, but this also carries ethical implications with it. But the work that goes into the 3D print is considerable, so I don't want to make it sound like it is easy as selecting as imaging and hitting print. Despite the ease at which 3D printers can be bought, it remains a costly and labor-intensive procedure which requires a lot of labor and time from our students and staff.
So quite demanding in that regard.
Yes.
Okay. And what is the impact of capacity building training in the field of health sciences?
During the Kickstart meeting for our Dirasana grant, so each grant has its own opening meeting with us and the entire member of the consortium. I mentioned that every health professional needed a biological anthropologist on their research team. The reason being is that our students are able to work with this digital data, from the scanning process to reconstruction and segmentation and processing for 3D printing. We are also able to navigate a skull, for example, select a region of interest for a researcher, or be able to offer them advice on their research methodology, whatever they want to extract from that bone or the internal structures they want to extract. Additionally, our students and our staff have an excellent understanding of human variation within South African populations, which are necessary for any researcher wanting to look at skeletal remains or to incorporate skeletal remains into their research. However, we would not be able to have reached this point without having our contribution and support from our overseas colleagues, our current postgraduate student and postdoctoral student complement, or from either the Bakeng Africa or Dirasana research grants.
Okay. And how will the EU Dirasana Plus be implemented to improve the education systems in the faculty, specifically looking at it from the planning phase?
Well, this is certainly more broad, and we have just started the project, so I will touch upon the areas that we want to work on. And Dirasana Plus has helped us learn how to manage complex educational projects, which can help UP prepare their support systems for future similar endeavors and future research. This is our first EU grant based solely on education, and though we learned a lot about how to manage these types of grants with Bakeng Africa, Dirasana Plus is a much more complicated project with far more themes and outcomes. This will expand our capacity from a management perspective in gaining experience in managing complex educational projects, and UP support systems will be able to adapt accordingly based on specific requirements of managing and supporting these large grants. We are plugged into the Health Science Education Network. Additionally, we have started to grow into the areas already established for people interested in health science education locally and internationally. We get to learn from our South African partners and our EU partners about how health sciences education and research is done and use those methods that are transferable into our own contexts. We're also developing staff, both through employment and staff development. So the Dirasana grant involves many staff cost funds and staff development initiatives. And the project will enable us to employ postgraduate students and experienced staff in various contract positions for expansion in our capacity, even if it is only for a limited time within the 3 years. These staff members can also benefit from our staff develop initiative, giving especially our postgraduate students much needed skills and experiences in order to enter the workforce as valuable assets. If they choose to stay with us after the duration of a grant, we also gain from their experience in managing future research projects in health science education and for implementing future grants of a similar nature.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I think what I really appreciate about it and what stood out to me is the fact the collaboration's international as well as local. And I think that touches on a similar sentiment with the work that you do with the South African Police Services as well. I think it's so rewarding to hear that collaboration abroad, but as well as domestically. Thank you. And how has the grant opened up opportunities for collaborations and partnerships in general, you know, in a wide scope of collaborations and partnerships?
Well, fortunately, collaborations and partnerships is the point of all Erasmus capacity building grants. So with Erasmus Plus grants, you enter into the project working with 7 or 8 other institutions. So you automatically form collaborations and partnerships which may last beyond the term of the grant period. Both grants supply travel mobilities for staff and students. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, we were unable to use them last year and for most of this year due to COVID-19. But we will use them towards the end of the project and as our countries begin to open up. We have strong research collaborations with Sefako Mahato University, and we've helped build a lot of their facilities as well through these grants, or assisted through these grants. We also have strong relationships with Stellenbosch University, the Catholic University of Leuven, the University of Bordeaux, and the CNRS with regards to research methodology and research focus around digital data. In biological anthropology, we are currently developing similar relationships with the University College of Dublin, and we're anticipating maintaining these relationships long after both grants are completed. International collaboration has assisted in growing our research focus at the Forensic Anthropology Research Centre, and we will continue down this path with our South African colleagues on future grants.
I love the sentiment of sustainability. It sounds like that's one of the central underpinnings of it, and I think that's so important. So, you know, with regard to opening it up to online questions, we do seem to have got a few questions here. And I'll start off with the first one, which is how does Bekeng South Africa and Derisana Plus open up research opportunities for postgraduate students specifically?
I can speak from the University of Pretoria and from our side. So each institution contributes to their postgraduate students in their own way. So we manage each institution, but they do their own output. From our side at the University of Pretoria, postgraduate students are involved in contract work. We have them working on dissemination and exploitation. They are trained in-house in the University of Pretoria. They're also involved on research projects, particularly within Bekeng South Africa. And they're getting their MSc and PhD degrees, many of with research topics relating around 3D digital data and the use of 3D digital data in biological anthropology. But for the most part, the students are employed as staff members of the grant for the period of time in one area of aspect of that grant. So for example, if we're looking at Derisana, some of them, a leading researcher may need a student to work on a particular project, and we find funds for that student to assist on that project based within the guidelines of the EU.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that. I think we have one more question that has come through online, and that specifically is how is community engagement incorporated into the FARC's research?
That is something we are working on. We did have community engagement involved in our strategic goals and development. Unfortunately, because of COVID, it was halted for the last year and a half, in that we are not able to engage with communities as we would like, because we are all online or digital, and it is difficult to communicate a topic to someone as an undergraduate student without a context session, and it makes it even more harder to communicate that to the public. Yeah. But it is involved in our strategic planning, and we do have some plans starting with schools, particularly around human evolution and how we should teach human evolution not only to the public but to our undergraduate students to better understand the nature of science and the nature of where we come from. And that is part of that planning, but at the moment we can't do that much without context sessions with public.
Understandably so. So I think a few obstacles, but finding innovative ways to maneuver through that and strategic planning to be able to facilitate such processes in the future. Thank you. So, you know, in ending today's discussion, I'd just like to thank you, Prof. Lebay, for elaborating on the forward-thinking research done by the Forensic Anthropology Research Centre and the international collaborations it has fostered. Thank you to the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Pretoria for affording us this platform to empower each other with factual information. Please follow us and subscribe to all of our social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn to stay up to date with research findings in the fields of health sciences as well as forensic anthropology. Please stay safe and remember that your health is in your hands. Thank you.
At the University of Pretoria's Faculty of Health Sciences, we believe in unearthing potential. We believe in our students' potential to make a positive impact in society and to produce research that shifts boundaries. In order to help students reach their full potential, the Faculty of Health Sciences has established the Life Changers Fund. Partner with us to help our life changers reach their full potential by contributing to the Student Solidarity Fund. Your contribution will help support students who are in need to pay for accommodation, tuition, food, and procure PPE. Join us and help support our students to reach their full potential. Through any contribution, you can be a life changer too. Developing life changers together.